Hey everybody, welcome to We Gotta Talk. I'm Sunny. I'm so glad you're here. This week's interview, because we all need a little escape from reality, is like a big gulp of an Aperol Spritz on the Amalfi Coast. I'm going to just remove you from reality for a moment in time and talk with someone who's doing something that I frankly want to do. Hopefully not too far in the future. Her name is Caroline Kirikella, or Kirikella. She is an American living in Italy, a PR expert and strategist who I connected with through a number of professional channels and who I've kind of gotten to know online since. And we're talking about what it's like living in Italy. Caroline is from the United States. She's from New York. She's an opera singer. You'll hear her talk about this more in detail, but she was a trained opera singer who went over to Italy for a performance of some sort. And like it does with many of us, the country just got its claws into her. And she was like, you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to move to Italy. But she actually did it. And since then, this is over 10 years ago, has built a full life there, including a husband and children, and a successful business, which you'll hear her discuss as well. And it is just the coolest thing to hear somebody doing this. So in this interview, we are talking, I mean, it's not just indulging me and my inner fantasies about living in Italy. It's also about the practicalities of what it looks like if this is something you want to do too. So we talk about everything from what it's like raising a family there, the fluency, the process for language, like how long it took her to catch on versus her kids, which is a really interesting point if you're interested in, bringing your kids to any other country really for an extended period of time. I ask her like how long it took for them to catch on to the language, etc. What it's like running a business from overseas, everything from like the daily life things that are a little bit different to the bigger life stuff, like living and the homes there and how she decided where to settle down, a small town versus a bigger city. So anyway, I hope this is for you as it was for me, an escape from just the world right now and a way to kind of get the sort of inner cogs working on how to make it maybe happen for you. So anyway, Caroline is a delight. I loved hearing about her experience. I want to make a quick note before we get to the interview. When you hear us reference anything about the dual citizenship process for the US and Italy, the rules have changed since then. So a couple of months ago at this point, the Italian government issued a decree. They changed the law and they really tightened the restrictions on who can apply for and be granted citizenship. It's not an impossible task, but it is much more difficult. So as for us, we're still on track, I think, but we got to take a little bit of a different route to get to the end goal. So if you have any questions on that in particular, just DM me on Instagram. I'm happy to send you over information on the agency we're using and some other people that I've been following on social media who are really helpful with this. But it's changed. So anything you hear us talk about in this interview in reference to citizenship, it's different now. Sorry, not my fault. Anyhow, enjoy this interview with Caroline, and I hope it's just a little bit of an escape for you. So thank you for being on.
Oh, thank you, Sunny. I'm happy to be here. Yeah, I mean, I've been in Italy now 10 years, and I can honestly say it was the best decision I ever made.
What? Okay, so bring us back. Where are you from originally?
I'm from New York City.
Mm-hmm. Where everyone's Italian, so our people.
Where everyone's Italian, you know, it's kind of like the law to be Italian there. But yeah, I'm from New York City, and I love all my memories and all my happiness that I had in New York. But when I was 24 when I moved here. And it was because I just was kind of getting tired of life in New York City, to be honest. I just felt it was a little too crazy, big city, too much fast pace, not really time to connect with people and just slow down and live. And so Italy was in my blood. I have Italian heritage. My great-grandfather is from Salerno, and I knew I wanted to get here. I had been in Italy a few years earlier because back in the day, I was studying to be an opera singer, and I was singing. I was invited to sing at an opera festival in Ischia, And that was what first got me to Italy. And from that first visit, I knew I had to come back. It's stereotypical, but I knew I had to find a way back here. And so I did a little back and forth. And then it was in 2014 that I came to this small town where I now live called Guardia San Framondi. It has as many people as the apartment complex that I grew up in New York City, 5,000 people.
What? Okay, where is it located geographically?
So it's around an hour north of Naples and 2 hours outside of Rome. It's in a really convenient location, quite frankly, as far as having to get around everywhere. But it's a small town in the mountains that everybody knows your name, everybody knows your business. But I, oddly enough, love that, because now that I have kids, it feels so wonderful to live in a place that's so safe and calm, and where literally you can go out and people are buying you coffee. I can literally know that I can leave my daughter at the park and somebody will watch her if I have to run to the bathroom. I know all the owners of restaurants and bars and stores here. So even if I have to run upstairs to the bathroom and leave my son in his carriage, somebody that I trust and know will watch my kids. And that was for me something that I feel I missed in New York, that it was part of something that I wanted and never had. I had an amazing childhood growing up in New York. Amazing. I mean, but when I got older, if you will, and realized, okay, now I have to start and have a career, and I knew I wanted a family, I knew New York wouldn't be in the cards for that chapter of my life, And
it's so interesting too, like the experience being Italian American, how differently it can sort of, come to fruition in different geographic areas, because I'm hearing your experience in New York City as an Italian American, and that makes sense, right? It's a big city. Whereas my people came through and kept going west to Pittsburgh, and they established a community just like you're talking about in Italy, right? It's a town outside of a town, big city. Right. And when I tell you, my family literally knows everyone in this small McKees Rocks, they just were related to half, and we know the other half. So I'm hearing you explain this, and it feels familiar in a lot of ways. And it makes you feel like just that community aspect really is in the blood in some way.
It is. It's something that, I mean, you said it yourself, Sunny, but clearly Italians want to talk. They want to help. They want to be a part of something. And, that is something that, because being in New York City, which is such a big city, big crazy place where, quite frankly, growing up, I didn't even know my neighbors, that I never had that kind of connection. And that was something that I really wanted to find in Italy. And I mean, like I said, here, everybody knows my children's names. I mean, the other night we were at our favorite restaurant where my daughter is friends with the owner's daughter, and we've known the owners for years. And there was a birthday party upstairs, and it was the guy, one of the older men in town, his granddaughter. And he came down, gave my kid balloons, and gave my daughter a slice of cake from the birthday party. And they invited her to come upstairs to the party. And these are things that just, they don't have a price for me, It's something that I could never have imagined growing up in New York City, that now I love having that for my kids.
Yeah, I mean, talk about a real shift. I mean, you went 180 from one of the fastest, most crazy cities in the world to true small town living. What is it, do you think what is the one element of Italian life that you, besides the slow pace, that you appreciate the most, and that you couldn't have seen yourself appreciating or didn't expect? Now that you've been there, it's been a decade, you're raising a family there, what really hits for you?
Well, honestly, it's the connections with people that I never had in New York. And I even mean little random interactions that I never had in New York, where, I mean, maybe I'll go into a bar and randomly start talking to somebody, and then I'll go to pay and find out that that person already paid for my breakfast. Just when you randomly talk to somebody and find out that they're your next door neighbor's granddaughter, son, or something, and you actually know them because your child goes to school with them. These little things that happen that just, I know this sounds funny as a cynical New Yorker. I was never somebody that was such a people person that was terribly comfortable interacting randomly with people that I didn't know. And
Mm,
here it happens all the time. And
mm,
it's something that I've gotten so used to in daily life that I enjoy it now, that I never really enjoyed before. I mean, here, the town I live in, people will help you if you need help. And
mm.
that's something I experienced firsthand when I was pregnant with my son. I found myself without my husband, who went back. We were selling our house in Puglia, and I was pregnant, and I had my daughter with me. My mom was with me, and one morning I was having trouble breathing, and I had to call an ambulance. Everything was okay, but literally, I then called a good friend of ours who came to pick up my mom and daughter to drive them to the hospital, drove them back home. I called a friend of ours who is a nurse who came to bring me medicine. I called another friend who needed to give me a ride the next day. This was stuff that I never had those kind of connections with people, that it makes me so happy to know that this is where I'm raising my family. You know what I
Hmm.
mean?
So is your husband Italian? Is he
My husband is
American?
Italian. He's
Okay.
originally from Puglia. He's an artist. And we actually randomly met here in Guardia. He's not from this town originally. He was actually living in England when we met here. But we met in the historic center, just passing by. And it was just, it
Stop.
was,
That is too cute.
yeah, we feel it was fate because there were a lot of coincidences that brought us to one another. But
Mm.
literally, it was, people say like a meet cute, because we were just randomly passing. And I was with a few friends, and they're like, oh, this is Vito. You should meet him. He's an artist. And we met. And then it was really cute because we just met randomly there. I went back home to New York the next month. He found me on Facebook when I was in New York,
Oh
sent
my
me a note
gosh.
reminding me that we had met. We spoke every day until I came back later that summer. And we've been together now going on 10 years. So it was meant to be, I feel.
Okay, I have to ask, biggest difference between Italian men and American men. Go. The
Oh,
good and
we
the
don't have
bad.
enough time for this. We
Oh
don't
my
have enough
gosh.
time for
You know
this.
what? Nothing embarrassing, but I know the ladies out there want to know.
I really don't, I'm going to be honest, I don't know that there's much of a difference when all is said and done, because I just really feel okay, maybe more Italian men. Italian
Mm.
men will never admit when they're wrong. They won't do it.
Or women for
Maybe
that matter, but
American, yeah, I was going to say, I don't really know if that's just Italian or not, but they will just
ugh.
not admit when we're very proud, being, from
Mhm.
Italian culture, that strong-headed, we call it capatos. We have a hard
Uh-huh.
head,
Oh,
and you just can't get anything through. Um, but no, I mean, I'm very lucky with my husband. He's
yeah.
a good middle ground as far as Italian mentality. But
Mhm.
then, because he lived in England for some time, he speaks
Right.
English. He's more open to a lot of different things, let's say. So he's not that stereotypical, like hard-headed, jealous,
Mm.
controlling Italian man.
Yeah, we don't like that. We don't like the stereotype of the Italian man that lives with his mom until he's like 45 too, and then like
No,
moves
no,
the
no, no, no,
wife
no, 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 no,
over, and then we don't want that. We want
no,
the
no, no,
the,
no, no.
the modern version, right?
Exactly, exactly. And that's luckily that's how my husband is. So
So wait, do you speak English together or do you speak Italian? Tell me about the language thing. This
we
fascinates
speak
me.
So we speak both languages in our house because I wanted
Mhm.
to make sure that my daughter, and I mean, my son is 15 months old, but he'll get there. I wanted to make sure that my children were bilingual. And my
Mm.
daughter is 6. She's completely bilingual. She will be at the table with our entire family and speak to my husband in Italian, and then turn and say something to my dad in English. And like, it's nothing. So I make a point okay. So I mostly speak English to my daughter when we're at home, but when we're outside, I speak to her in Italian. But my
Okay.
husband obviously only speaks Italian to my children. But then when we're with my family, he'll speak English because he speaks English very well. But so it goes back and forth. But yeah, my
Mhm.
daughter is completely, but that, like you said, I'm kind of fascinated by it, because I
Beautiful.
can't imagine at 6 years old speaking 2 languages. And even
And
sometimes people hear her
it's so
outside.
effortless for them too. They just go with it.
Exactly. And the amazing thing is, up until around 2 years ago, she wasn't bilingual. It was when we got out of basically the funk of the pandemic, and started being able to live our lives more and taking her to the park and interacting with friends and having people over, that the past 2 years, she picked up on the Italian like a sponge. It was
That's
incredible.
That's awesome. What about you? I mean, I took lessons for probably 4 years. We went just a couple of
Mhm.
times and going back, and every time I'm there, it clicks in. I even at one point we were there long enough, I was dreaming in Italian phrases, but
That's a good sign.
it never feels right. So if just say 5 years from now,
Mhm.
if I and my family have the opportunity to be there longer term, how long until you think someone who's proficient but not fluent would take to really, really feel like you understand and can say anything?
I don't know honestly how long it could take because I feel everybody's experience is different. But I feel
Mm.
like if you were to come over here and really immerse yourself into wherever you live and make a point of, when people have asked me, what did you do to learn the language? I said, I made myself uncomfortable. And
Oh,
by
it's the
that, I
worst
mean,
feeling. Yes.
but by that, I mean, when I just got here, I went to the bar by myself and sat
Mm.
and had a coffee and waited for people to start talking to me
Okay, wait,
because I
pause.
knew,
Give how did that go? Like, and what would you do when you didn't non capisco? Like, what do you do? Just have them repeat and repeat and
have
repeat?
them
Like,
repeat and just, not a joke. When I say making myself uncomfortable is
yeah.
what helped. The first year that I was here, one night I found myself out to dinner with a group of 15 Italians that lasted for like 5 hours. I
Mm.
spoke a little Italian, but being in that kind of situation, I still remember that night. I left with such a headache. Left with such
Oh,
a
sure.
headache because it was like trying to
Mhm.
understand everything was so challenging. But I credit those situations to helping me to have gotten where I am now because I pushed myself and I did things that made me feel uncomfortable,
Mm.
like I couldn't handle it. Because I always find that those situations where you're uncomfortable or you're a little afraid are usually the ones that are going to pay off. So, specifically with your question, maybe a year or so. If you're talking
Mm.
about with kids, kids pick up on the language a lot faster, even if they're
Right.
older. But just getting into a town, going out to dinner, talk, when you go to the grocery store, make a point of asking questions about, what you're looking for or something. And you just you just really have to push yourself. And
Yeah.
that's really what did it for me.
So you were feeling good within like 6 months. A lot of those situations, like what was your
Like a year, I'd say a
yeah.
year to really feel comfortable because
Mhm.
I found I was able to understand a lot more, but I wasn't able to speak immediately because
Right.
especially Italians speak really quickly. And where I am, they also speak in dialect. So sometimes trying to pick up on the dialect when it's going,
Mm.
100 miles per hour can be a challenge. But it was around a year that I got really comfortable and was able to speak and have conversations with people. And now I'm fluent, but I make a ton of grammatical errors. So I don't speak perfect Italian. I can speak Italian with anybody back and forth, no problem. But it's not, and my husband gets on me a lot about this, saying, "Oh, but my grammar issues," because
Mm.
Italian, when it comes to conjugating verbs and all grammar issues, is so complicated. It's
It's a
really
lot.
complicated.
Yeah. I mean, I remember going through lessons and I was like, how many more versions of verbs are there? Because like I'm
It's
good. I feel like we've
it's
covered
just
about
everything.
17.
Exactly. Everything changes for a situation, masculine
Right.
or feminine. It gets insane. And that
Yeah.
is where I had and still have a bit of trouble, to be honest.
Mhm. Mhm. Do you have friends that are American? Are you noticing a trend of more? Because I think on this side of things, and maybe
Mm.
because I'm plugged into this community, I definitely hear more people who are expressing a desire to, whether it's spend a longer amount of time in the summer there or move there for a short period of time. It feels like there's more chatter, but what do you see on
A
your
lot.
end?
Well, I mean, where I live specifically, there's actually
Mhm.
a big expat community here,
Oh, that's so fun.
which is surprising because it's such a small town.
Mhm.
But there's a big expat community here. I'd say, again, this is a town of barely 5,000 people. There's maybe around 100 expats here.
Wow.
So it's nice to have that connection as well. I have to admit, coming from America, speaking English, obviously, it is nice to be able to occasionally speak in English, meet people for a coffee and talk about stupid American stuff or serious American stuff. And just kind of, because even sometimes my husband will say to me, oh, but you're in Italy, you have to speak, you have to do this and that. And I'm like, but you have to understand, for an American that is still coming here, sometimes I need a little taste of home, you know?
Absolutely. And I think as much as all of us want to connect in this community with our roots, and it is really special to be able to do so, I'm sure there are moments like our version of Italian. I mean, we are American Italian first, like we're
Yeah,
American first, and so I can
yeah,
understand really missing that ease and comfort with your people for
yeah,
sure.
exactly. It's just, it is something that occasionally that you just, again, I lived in New York up until I was 24. So it's not something that goes away overnight. Speaking
Hmm.
English, wanting to have an interaction in English with somebody about something that maybe Italians won't understand
Hmm.
or they won't get the gist of.
Right.
So I do appreciate having that here because, again, there's actually a big expat community that we're friends with a lot of people in it, which is wonderful. And obviously, I'm lucky that because my husband is Italian, we've connected with Italians as well. My daughter goes
Mm.
to school, so it's one of those things that you connect with the moms when you take the kids to the park. And yeah, it's just, it's good to have that balance, you know?
Yeah. I wonder what is the cultural like hot thing lately? I mean, like obviously, and I'm speaking like in super generic terms, but like,
Mhm.
everything in America, it's like reality TV and like the trashy, like fun, like what that we talk about over lunch with our girlfriends, or I
Mhm.
don't know, stuff. I'm sure the kids stuff sort of transcends cultures, but like what
Yes.
is the cultural like hot point? And what do women, Italian women, or you find yourself talking with Italian women about when you're, say, with your kids' school friends' moms?
Honestly, when I'm okay, so this is a tough one to answer because I feel like moms in general, because I'm a mom first and foremost. That's what I feel like moms, no matter where they are, talk about the same kind of stuff. And I mean that
Yeah.
as a positive. So when
Yeah.
I'm with my daughter and I'm talking to some of my mom friends,
Mhm.
we're talking about our kids, we're talking about our house, we're talking about how we don't have time for stuff, we're talking about work, we're talking about, what we're being Italian, we're talking about what we're going to make for dinner, you know. But I kind of feel that when it comes to, again, because I'm a mom and all my friends are moms as well, that I feel like a lot of the stuff we discuss is probably the same I'd be discussing with American moms as well, to be
Mhm.
honest.
Okay. Yeah, it's like mom, like you're right, mom issues and, joys and problems transcend cultures, huh?
Yeah, Italian, American, it makes no difference. When you're a mom, the issues are all kind of the same, in my opinion.
Regionally speaking, what is the hotspot for people wanting to either visit or relocate? I feel like I'm learning so much more about the
Mhm.
different regions of Italy as the years go on, and I travel or just talk to my Italian friends.
Mhm.
What's hot for what? For example, we can start with travel. Where are you seeing more
Mhm.
people go to lately regionally? And then when it comes to people wanting to relocate, where are the good spots for that?
Well, I mean, for travel, I think recently there's been more of a trend of people wanting to experience more small town Italy as
Mhm.
opposed to just going to Rome, Florence, and Milan, which,
Mhm.
don't get me wrong, I love Rome. I love Florence. I was recently in Florence. It's one of my favorite places. But I think there's been a bit of a backlash because of all the mass tourism. I
Hmm.
mean, when I was in Florence, and it was barely a month ago, it was so crowded, lines everywhere. All the
Yeah.
menus are in English. They cater to the tourists. And then it kind of starts to feel a bit like Disneyland, these kind of places,
Mhm.
to be honest.
Mhm.
So I feel like recently there's been a backlash with that, with people wanting to have more boutique itineraries that, they're maybe staying in locally run B&Bs. They're eating at agriturismos and trattorias, not necessarily restaurants that are in Piazza Navona that have the big menu that they have spaghetti and meatballs. So I feel for travel, that's kind of, I mean, again, Rome and Florence are Rome and Florence. I always
Right.
say people should go there and see them at least once. But if you really want to experience being in Italy, I love just randomly, like, again, I'm in the South, and even with
Mm,
my husband and I, we'll sometimes take random day trips with our kids to surrounding towns to just explore.
right.
Not necessarily with an itinerary, but maybe we'll come across a museum or an old church or a monument. We'll find a little trattoria that barely has a sign outside, that it's the little old nonna cooking in the back, and
Mm,
she doesn't have a menu. She'll just tell you what she has. And that to me is the best way if you really want to experience being here. As far as relocating, I think it really depends on where you are in life. In that, are you looking to retire? Do you have young kids? Are you going to be working? I mean, recently there's been more. I mean, if people are coming and they want to work and they're working, corporate,
mhm,
that's the north. You're not going to get that as much in southern Italy, quite frankly.
right,
But if you're somebody like me, I started my own business, I work remotely. You can work from anywhere, wherever you are in Italy.
right.
Um, and so if you're looking to retire, I mean, recently you're going to Puglia. You said you have that amazing trip planned to Puglia.
Yeah.
Puglia has been we recently moved back from Puglia. It's a bit back and forth. We because my husband is from Puglia. So after being here for 5 years, we moved to Puglia, bought a few houses there, stayed there, and then moved back to this town. But Puglia is a place that there's been a lot going on recently as far as more expats moving there and relocating there, because a lot of people love the beach.
Right.
Um, so I'm actually, oddly enough, not a fan of the beach. So it doesn't matter to me. But so yeah, it's
Like, not at
very,
all? Were you ever, or is it just like you like a lot like a more of a
I
Caribbean
prefer
beach
a
versus an
swimming
Italian?
pool,
That's funny.
in a hotel. I
Okay.
have
Oh my gosh,
made jokes to
so
my husband
cool.
because it's something so not Italian about me. Because Italians, when the summer comes, they're like, let's go to the mare, andiamo mare, andiamo mare. I'm like, I don't want to go to the mare. I want to go to a resort where I
La
don't have to worry.
piscina, right?
Yeah, I want to go to a resort where everything is taken care of, where I don't get
Oh,
sand
yeah.
in my feet and then have to shower it off, and then my kids and everything. I want the easy way to relax, you know.
Yes.
But sorry, I veered off there a
Mm.
bit. But
No, I love
no,
it. I love
Puglia
these
has
little
been,
nuggets.
yeah, no, it's so funny because when I recently mentioned to somebody that I hated the beach, they looked at me like I was an alien, basically, because
That's so
Italians
fun.
love the beach. They
Oh my
love the beach.
gosh.
And
I was watching this really it was one of those Instagram like
mhm,
Italy accounts, and it was speaking of the beach, it was showing how what Sicilians bring to the beach in their coolers.
mhm.
And it was the and I guess to be you have to be like Italian American or Italian to appreciate like the cold cuts and the cheese
Yes. Oh,
and
yeah.
the mozzarella, like everything. It was like a little restaurant in a cooler, and it cracked
Oh,
me up.
yeah,
I'm
of
thinking,
course.
and that's why they love it, because it's I mean, you're
Yeah.
not lacking for anything. You're bringing an entire meal. You're there
No.
for 8 hours, and everybody's well fed, entertained, and just
Oh,
I mean, you're just
exactly.
there. Yeah.
You know, more power to the people that love it. I've
Oh,
never been a beach person.
okay, so explain to me too. This is something that I think as Americans, I definitely just saw Italy as
Mhm,
one whole country and just homogenous sort of experience, as I'm sure many
mhm.
people do of America too. What
Yeah.
I was surprised to learn as I learned more from my friend or from traveling is how differently Italians self identify based on region. And obviously, it's like really similar to how we are here in America. Like if you're from Louisiana, and you meet a New Yorker, you immediately have an idea of it. Not
Differences.
100% true,
Yes.
but yeah, of like who you are as a person. So could you run us through as ignorant Americans, like regionally, sort of how Italians see themselves and how they sort of identify by region?
Well, there is a huge difference. I mean, you nailed it between the regions. They're like you said, we're in America. If I'm from New York and you're from Louisiana, we're
Hmm.
in America, we're in the same country, but we might as well be two worlds apart. And
Yeah.
that is the way it is with Italians as well. Quite frankly, Italy is very divided, the North and the South. In the North, they're a little more refined. There's more job opportunities. The income rate is higher in the North because, again, there are more job
Hmm.
opportunities. So it's just natural that that's the way it's going to be. Northerners consider themselves more refined. They consider up in the north, Florence is where they consider Italian, that they speak true Italian, because that's, based on from the Renaissance and all that kind of stuff. Whereas if you get further south, things are a little more casual.
Right.
There's not that same mindset like working in the north. If you go to Milan, you might as well be in New York, quite frankly. But so there is kind of that competition between the two. I mean, luckily, wherever I've been, north or south, I've found ways to connect and, be happy wherever I am. But there is definitely that unspoken, what's the right word to describe this? There's definitely that,
like a tension almost between,
yeah,
or okay,
it can be, and especially because
right,
in southern Italy there can be more regions that have, they're more in. I mean, quite frankly, I'm sure you've heard about like the whole €1 house thing. A lot of that has been done
yes,
in the southern regions of Italy as a way to get people to come and try to revive the town. But there is definitely that feeling that Northerners sometimes can think, oh, well, the Southerners don't like to work and they don't speak proper Italian and that. But then Southerners also think, oh, Northerners just work too much. They're more focused on money. They don't know la dolce vita, la bella figura, that kind of stuff because of how they act. So there's kind of that back and forth. But again, I'm not, I don't want to say anything because I'm not Italian.
No.
That could, my
Yeah,
husband.
right. Sure, true. So this is through the lens of two Americans. We will just put that on there, put that little
Perfect.
asterisk on there. But I mean, a lot of the immigration to America did come from the central to southern, mostly southern,
Absolutely.
even Sicily regions. So,
Absolutely.
yeah, I remember telling my Italian friend, we're a large part Sicilian too, and I just said, oh, Italian, like Sicily. And like, they really self-identify sort of separately from the mainland too. I
Yes.
was like, wow, so many shades of what it is to be Italian. Can you speak to Sicily in particular, which I know is also a real tourist hotspot? And ever since White Lotus season 2 came out, everyone's running there to the Four Seasons. So tell us a little bit about the Sicilian experience.
Well, okay, so I've actually never been to Sicily, not yet. I oddly enough had a few clients that were based in Sicily, so I got a bit of a touch from that. It's funny that you say Sicilians kind of identify as their own, because I don't remember the exact story, but my mom grew up in Brooklyn in a small Italian community in Williamsburg, and she told me actually that a few times when they'd be talking to, oh, she's not Italian, she's Sicilian.
Right. It's crazy.
So they do kind of identify on their own, maybe because, it's off the island and everything. I don't exactly understand why, but what I do know as far as Sicilians, and sometimes my husband will joke about this, Sicilian women are very hot-blooded. And sometimes my husband will say to me as a compliment, he's like, you're not just Italian, you're Sicilian.
That explains a lot of our family.
Yeah, exactly. When a Sicilian woman wants what she wants, she will get it.
Yep.
And there is no stopping her.
And I love it. It's got to be torture for our partners, though. I mean, for the men.
Exactly.
Yeah,
exactly.
yeah.
Because again, my husband says to me, like, you're not Italian. You're full blown Sicilian. When I want what I want, quite frankly. But
so funny. Yeah, I mean, it's been really cool to see, broader pop culture, like embrace it, like I said, with the TV shows. And there's like a much more of a proliferation of, it feels like, travel opportunities in these small towns that probably do appreciate the travel and the traction and the foot traffic and things, like draw in more tourists. It's kind of cool to see.
I mean, absolutely. I mean, the thing is, there is so much more to Italy than what people know. And by that, I mean, as I said, people know the Colosseum and they know the David and the Uffizi and the Duomo in Milan. There's so much more to Italy than that. And it's the Italy.
No, you finish, and then I have a follow-up question. I just thought of something as you were chatting here.
Sure. So it's not just the Italy that we see in movies. When you see movies and they're in Rome at the Fontana di Trevi, or in Florence to see the David, or online at the Uffizi, there's so much more to Italy than that.
Mhm.
And back to even what we were talking about before, I feel that lately, because these places have become so packed with tourists,
Mm.
that people want to see Italy in a different light. And by coming not even necessarily to a small town, but to a region, Abruzzo is lesser known than if you were to come to Rome or Milan or something, and you just randomly explore these places, you're going to find something that you're going to love. And
Mhm.
and I say that because, even again, because so many people know I live in Italy, they say, oh, where should I come to Italy? Should I go to Rome and Florence? I say, yes, but you should also make a point of exploring on your own terms. There's so much more than, I mean, people think of Tuscany because under the Tuscan sun and all this kind of stuff. And it's like, Tuscany is not just, what you see in the movies or how it's portrayed. There's all these little towns in Tuscany that
Mhm.
nobody has ever heard of, that you could step foot in and there won't be one tourist there. But you'll find something beautiful. You'll, have a random conversation with a 90-year-old woman who will probably invite you in to have a piece of cake and a cup of coffee. And that, to me, is what makes Italy. It's the people, to be honest.
Absolutely. It
It's
what would you so for someone who does want, and I think I tried to keep that vibe or that feeling in mind when planning our itinerary.
Mhm.
I would say, it's not for someone who wants to hit the high points. Go to the Vatican on your own, go to
Right.
Milan on your own, go to Lake Como, go wherever you want.
Absolutely.
But what would you suggest is a good? So, say someone wants the small town Italian experience and wants that more sort of familiar, meander the streets, wants
Mhm.
to avoid the long lines, no big
Right.
tourist traps or attractions. What is a good just general region to start in and then kind of hone in on small towns from there?
I mean, to me, honestly, Puglia would be a great place to
Yeah.
start because there are a lot
Yeah.
of smaller towns in Puglia as well that people have never heard of, and
Mhm.
that they're just beautiful. There's so much to do. The food is amazing. There's places to explore. There's so much to see. There's so much to do. Um, and I say that because we, up until recently, lived in Puglia, and
Mhm.
there are all these little towns. There's a little town that I love called Cellini that's just under 20,000. My husband is even from a small town in Puglia, maybe 24,000, a little town called Noci, that's
Mhm.
just beautiful. And all these towns have historic centers that have remained intact and that are kept in fine shape, which
Mhm.
is something that a lot of other towns, depending where you are in the South, that they need to revitalize the historic centers.
Right.
Um, so a lot of these little towns, again, people have heard of Puglia, and they
Mhm.
know places like Alberobello because of the Trulli and all that kind of stuff. But a lot of these little towns, just to explore and randomly, again, without an itinerary, to me, that's one of the most fun things that we'll do living here in Italy, is just get in the car and just randomly drive and like pick a place on Google Maps
Right.
where we're going to stop and explore. And that's, to me, the real reason people travel to begin with, to try to find something that
Mhm.
they haven't experienced.
And I do find that there are more travel agents who are able to provide that experience. Whereas, if you want the cookie cutter experience, you can probably book a lot of that on your own or find
Yes.
something online. But I'm finding, especially I'm thinking of the agent I'm working with, I think
Mhm.
there are so many more really, really well versed and well traveled agents who are starting to deliver like that particular type of experience, which is cool.
Exactly. Exactly. I mean, quite frankly, some of my clients, I've worked with a few clients who have had different travel agencies, quite frankly, and
Mhm.
in
Mhm.
completely different areas. Right
Mhm.
now, one of my clients actually has an agency based in Umbria. And the whole point of what people are looking for is not what you can get going to a big global agency. You want somebody that
Mhm.
has their feet on the ground, is local, that can
Mhm.
point you in the right direction if you want to go to stay at a local B&B where they're going to be making the fresh tortas in the morning just for you, and where they're setting the beds, and where, you know, they can help you with anything that you might need, whether it's pointing in the direction of a restaurant, helping you rent a car, just that more personalized experience that if you're going through big travel agents,
Right.
that you're not going to get, obviously, because again, people want a unique experience that
Right.
I'm not going to Google and see about what kind of itinerary can I plan in Rome in 3 days, you know?
What are some of the things that we want to avoid doing to not stick out as, I mean, we're gonna stick out as like the American tourists, but like
Yes.
little things we can do to just not completely look hopelessly dorky?
I honestly,
Or people
everyone's
are
going to
gonna
know
know.
your tourist operator. And I
I
say
know,
that because it's
that's
just,
so
it can't be
embarrassing, but
avoided.
I guess it is what it is, right?
It can't be avoided. People know. They just know. I mean, even like when I'm traveling around, even now as a local myself, even though I'm,
Mhm.
you know, I can always tell that's a tourist. That's an
Yeah.
American. I can just,
What is it? It's just a vibe?
it's usually, okay, funny thing. Tourists year round in Italy think that Italy, no matter what, is a warm country. And that is not always.
Yeah. No.
So
Okay.
sometimes I'll see somebody walking around now in December with shorts and sandals on. Right off, that's a dead giveaway.
Yeah, that's
Or a girl in a sundress. And
yeah.
it's like, it's still cold out.
Right,
I
right,
know you
right.
think Italy is just a warm-blooded country, that it's always hot. That's not the case. So that's a little thing that I would say, you know, make sure, you know, you dress appropriately so that you don't stand out like a sore thumb.
Right.
And something, I don't know. I mean,
What about
I don't really
style-wise?
like
I
to
mean,
tell people how they should act, because I feel, I mean, one of the things I find with tourists sometimes, if they come and they're, I don't want to say overly friendly, but if maybe, I don't know how to explain this, but say you go to a restaurant, and I'm talking more in the big cities, okay,
Mhm.
not in the small cities, because if you're in a small town, the waiters, people in stores, they want to talk with you because
Right,
they're really curious to know what got you to their small town that nobody's ever heard of.
right.
But I have seen sometimes, say in Rome, more so in Rome, to be honest, um, tourists will become like best friends with, you know, a waiter or somebody at the store. And then afterwards, it kind of backfires on them, because there's
How?
been a lot of controversy lately with like tipping culture. And then
Oh.
maybe if somebody's gotten overly friendly with a waiter, and then afterwards they give them the bill, and I saw this happen once, and they said, tip isn't included though. And tipping
So
is
they're
not,
taking advantage of that, like, relationship.
yes,
Did they
yes.
Oh, that's interesting. They're totally taking advantage of us.
Sometimes, yeah, that's why I'm always like, well, just, you know, and again, if it's in a small town, it's, people are legitimately curious about what brought you here, where are you from, and
Right.
there's no ulterior motive.
Sure.
But if you're in a big city
Mm.
and you kind of get overly friendly
Mhm.
and you start answering all these questions and making it out you're like your best friends, it sometimes will backfire. And that
Mm.
includes if you're in a store and then they try to upsell you, or if you're in a restaurant and then they make a point, oh, well, tip isn't included. Tipping is not obligated in Italy.
It's, like, embarrassing for Americans. I mean, that's our fatal flaw. We just walk around like, "Oh, hi, everyone." I mean, I do think maybe you're picking up too on the energy of these American tourists, because I know that I go into places with such a, like, almost childlike wonder about things that I know a lot of other Americans have too. We just,
Right.
we're just energetically a little more open. It's just our
Right.
way, and I think that probably really sticks out like Target on her back.
Yeah, it's
Yeah,
just, it's sometimes it can't be avoided. It can't be
right.
avoided. People, Italians, they know. I mean, they know when somebody's not from here. I mean, no matter how long I'll be here, when I speak
Mhm.
Italian, I still have my American
Yeah.
accent. So even something like that, I can speak Italian all I want, whether I'm in Rome, Florence, or Milan. They still know that I'm not a local. you know?
Yeah, that's funny. So what about, here's another thing I wanted to ask you about the style in Italy. And what I appreciated, it didn't feel as and this isn't a knock on French culture, but it didn't feel as put on as, say, Paris
Yeah.
street fashion, or it didn't feel as intentional as like a Paris or French
Mhm.
woman's style vibe, or even like the women in Germany who are super trendy and like it
Mhm.
felt it had an ease and a comfort to me. And I was like, I saw women wearing sneakers
Yes.
all the time and flats. It
Yep.
didn't feel, it felt effortless in a comfortable way. Am I getting this vibe right or not? This fascinates me, the
Me,
style.
you are. Because I don't really feel like when I'm out, whether it's here or when I'm traveling,
Hmm.
I don't maybe there's in the recent years been more of a return to comfort, as you said yourself. I don't really feel that when you go out, you're going to see women dressed. I don't want to say to the nines, but not
Right. I
so
know what you
put
mean.
on that you can tell that
But it
outfit was style.
works. Yeah, but it
Yeah,
still works in a really,
it
really
does.
chic way.
Yeah, exactly. And I think that's to an Italian woman's credit that sometimes I know, and it's funny because you said with French women how they dress. I think Italian women sometimes try to make things seem effortless.
Mhm,
They don't want you to maybe know the work that has gone on behind the scenes. And
mhm,
but that's also a positive to me because Italian women naturally can just feel glamorous or put on even with something simple if they're in, leggings and sneakers to make a run to the grocery store. They'll still have their
mhm.
lipstick on, they'll still have, their Gucci sunglasses, and they'll still find a way to make it work, you know?
Y Yeah, it works, and it doesn't it has a really standout feeling of not making you feel, I don't know, there was like,
No, I know what you
I was
mean.
like, it was approachable, right? It was like, "Oh,
It's
they're
not
very chic."
forced.
It's not forced. No, and not that it is in France or like, I see I'll follow all the street style accounts, but there's
Mhm.
just there's a groundedness to it that I'm like, "Oh, I like this." It felt a
Yeah,
little easier for me to like, "Oh, I can, this is something that I feel like I could
yeah.
into." Yeah.
Well, I think that also comes down with Italian women. It's funny because, at least from my point of view, I find Italian women can be very down to earth.
Mhm.
I know with some people, they will not agree with that at all. So I'm
Really?
saying it from because some people feel that Italian women are, again, the whole idea of capatos, that they're hard headed and,
Mhm.
there's all that effort that goes into how they look, their appearance and everything. I have not really experienced that, to be
Mhm.
honest. I think
Mhm.
Italian women, they are very confident, and
Mhm.
that is, again, to their advantage because
Mhm.
they don't really feel that they have to put on a show or what they
Right.
feel they should be letting you see. So because they're
Right.
confident and so comfortable with themselves, they can rock, again, leggings and sneakers because they also have that attitude that they don't care what somebody else thinks of them,
It like
you know?
shines through in the best way.
Yes, exactly. To me, that's a really positive way to look at it also because,
Right.
especially an American point of view coming from New York, there was always that you had to know how you were dressed depending on the
Mhm.
situation you were getting into
Mhm.
because again, New York is a whole different story. But
Right.
from where I come from, I remember when I was 15, all I wanted was a Marc Jacobs bag because that was the it bag
Yeah.
at the moment, and I had to have it. And my parents bought it for me. But now being here and seeing how things have changed, don't get me wrong, high end fashion is still, Gucci,
Sure.
Prada, Fendi, you know, there's no competition to that as
Mhm.
for me. But I also find that it's kind of a backlash to letting women just be women and
Mhm.
not needing structured dresses and, the high stilettos and having a
Right.
full face of makeup on, just letting their natural beauty shine through even in casual ways.
Right, right, right. Yeah, it was really refreshing. I was expecting to, these are just things that women pick up on. I'm sure men would be like, "What are
Yes.
you even talking about?" But I'm always taking in, the
Yes.
style and the feel of what women are doing around me
Absolutely.
when I travel. And I was like, oh, it just felt a little less look down the nose. And that's not a
Yes.
knock on any other,
No, no,
but
no.
it
I
does.
agree.
Do you know what I mean?
I completely agree with you. I mean,
Yeah.
like I said, even recently I was in Florence for work, and Florence is a big city and everything. It's not like I saw anything that stood out to me like, oh, that's clearly couture, and that woman
And
had
I could
clearly had that look
never, right.
styled. I could never
Right.
wear something like that. And I never picked up on anything like that. And
Mm-hmm.
maybe this also goes back a little, the idea of the pandemic, where people got used to, their casual, cozy clothing, and they kind of wanted to find a way to transition that into everyday life.
Mm-hmm.
Because I mean, I see the way women dress here, and again, it's effortlessly
Yep.
casual, but they make it work, because
It
Italian
looks,
women won't leave their house without some lipstick on, myself
I
included.
love it.
And to me, it's also all about these little touches that you do to make something casual kind of
Mm-hmm.
elevate it.
Mm-hmm.
So,
Mm-hmm.
I mean, again, I love designer brands. I'm not gonna fake out on that. So even for me, I've gotten into my mom uniform, if you will. Right now, I
Mm-hmm.
have on leggings and a
A
sweater.
sweater. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
That's it's comfortable, it's cold, but I have my Gucci sunglasses, I have my
Mm-hmm.
Gucci bag, so that it feels kind of well-rounded, the outfit, so that this is casual and
Mm-hmm.
cozy, but it lets somebody, you're still putting a bit of effort into the look without it
Right.
making it too over the top.
I care. It shows I care. Right.
Pretty much, yeah.
Yeah.
That's just a little more thought,
Right. Right.
a
Right.
little
I
more
love it.
thought into
So really quickly before we wrap, Caroline, tell
it.
us what's next for you. I mean, you and I have connected on some of your clients before,
Mhm.
but if people wanted to connect with you or I know you and I are working hard to kind of elevate some Italian brands, hopefully down the line. But what's the best way for people to reach out, and what can they reach out to you for? Because I feel like you're such a resource, but I want to make sure that people are finding you for the right stuff.
Oh, well, thank you. So people can reach out to me. They can find me. I'm kind of old school. I actually don't have a website. I'm in the process
Yeah.
of making one, because my dad and I work together, and we said, I think it's time. So basically, my company is Kirikella Associates. People can find me under Caroline Kirikella on
Spell that for
LinkedIn.
us.
ChiriChella.
Okay.
You can find me on LinkedIn under Caroline Kirikella, or on Instagram as well. So basically, my PR company is that I work specializing with women-owned businesses as well as Italian-focused businesses and I work specifically in the American and UK media market to get people seen and heard. I work with my dad now, because my dad is a PR executive with over 30 years experience. And now that he lives in Italy, we figured to team up. So basically, people that have businesses, women that have businesses, or people that have businesses that have an Italian focus, they can reach out to me. And with PR, it's basically the idea of getting earned media attention. So if people want to find a way to get in Forbes or the New York Times, or they want to get their feet wet and they want to get on some amazing podcasts like yours, and just basically have their business heard and seen. And that's what I do.
I love that. You are great. Your list of your roster of clients, they're so varied and just really individually interesting. So if anything of what she said, guys, rings a bell, or you want to reach out, she has a really awesome list of people that she works with. Thank you so much for taking the time to just let me pick your brain today. It was so fun. It was like a little mini vacation in my mind.
Thank you, Sunny. It was a lot of fun to talk about all of this fun, crazy stuff with you.
More questions to come from my end for sure on email. And guys, thank you for listening. Yes. And I guess that's another good thing to mention. Find her on Instagram, because that's a great quick DM way to ask a quick DM question. Okay. I'll link your stuff.
Absolutely, Sunny. That would be great.
Awesome. All right. Thanks, Caroline. Have a great day.
You too, Sunny.
Thanks so much for listening to this episode of We Gotta Talk. Please leave a rating and review. 5-star ratings and reviews help a huge amount in getting this podcast out to people who might like it or find it useful. Thanks so much for your support of We Gotta Talk. Follow me on Instagram @SunnyAbata, and check out our latest blog posts at wegottatalk.com/blog.